today on Doug's Fountain Pen Workshop, we're going to look at replacing some nibs on the Moonman A1, A2, A3 model pens, because I've purchased some replacement nibs from Bobby Pens, and I purchased them from his Etsy shop, which is Chinese Pen on Etsy, and I bought two nibs from him. One is a stub nib, and one is an architect nib. And he's noted here they are for the A1, A2, A3 fountain pens, and he's included a nib adjustment tool and a little piece of rubber in case you don't have any rubber material or mat to pull nibs, which makes it very convenient to replace these nibs. Each one of these is about $18 US, something like that. I paid $20 Canadian. You do the math. And I've purchased the Stub and the Architect because I want to try them both out, but I want specifically the Architect to go in my Majohn A3. The Stub is going to go to my son. I've offered him one of these three pens, and he selected this black one to use while he's working on set. He works in film, and this stealth black is perfect for him, and the retractable nature of the nib works for him at work as well. So I'm going to give this a try. Bobby has a video on YouTube that shows how you pull these nibs. It's very simple, actually. I'll post a link to that video in the description below so you can watch that, but I'll be doing the same thing here so you can watch mine too. And you don't have to use this rubber inner tube that he's provided. You can use this matte material as well. I'll probably give this a try. And after I've replaced the nibs, I'm going to give each one of the nibs a try with some writing samples to see how they write. This one is my A1, and it's in black, and it has a Pilot nib unit. So I'm going to keep that. It's a Pilot Stub, 18 karat gold stub. I'm going to keep that for myself and put that probably in this pen here, because this is the one that he's selected for use. There it is. It's a beautiful stub nib. Works beautifully. So I'm saving that Pilot for later, and in the meantime I'm going to put the Stub into the A1 black and the Architect into the A3. Let's see about putting this Stub into the A1. So take the unit out. There is the original EF that came with this pen, and here is the Architect. Put my magnifying glass on here. There's the Stub that Bobby has hand ground, and he hand ground it out of an F nib, a Moonman F. So first we have to remove the original EF nib, and through Bobby's instructions he says to grab the shoulders of the nib and pull straight out from the feed. So I'm wrapping the rubber gripper around and just gripping on the shoulders right there, and we're going to pull. I find the best way to pull is to grab onto both sides. Gripping material on both sides helps. We get a nice grip, and then push your knuckles together. I know you can't see this, but I'm pulling here and pushing on my knuckles. We'll see whether that works. Yeah, I had to do it closer to my chest, so off camera. And we end up with the feed. See, there's no ink in this. There's the feed. There's the original nib that I pulled. And to put the new nib on, you just line it up so those little four grippers there are lined up with the feed properly. Just put it right there and put your gripper material rubber right at the top shoulders of that nib, and you're going to push straight on as far as you can go, and that works nicely. And there's our stub nib, so we're going to put that back in the pen, and this is James's pen, the A1, and then we'll do the same thing for the A3, and there's no ink in this either. And here is the original nib, and we're going to do the same thing. Push our knuckles together. I'll do this closer to my chest. There we go. And we'll grab the Architect, and this one will be mine. Again, line it up at the center so those four posts go on. This is going to go on fairly easily, I think. Yep, it goes on really, really easily. If you find it's too loose, you can grab some small pliers and just squeeze on those four posts a little bit. Again, be very careful with that. Get our magnifier out again and take a look at the Architect that he's hand ground for me. Again, these are about $18 US, about $20 Canadian. That's what I paid. So put this back into the A3, and this one will be for me. So the Architect in the A3 and the Stub in the A1. So I'm going to fill these with ink, and we'll do some writing samples. So before I inked these pens, I thought I'd go over the parts bag that comes with it and what your filling options are for the A1, A2, A3 Moonman pens. So let's take this apart. The unit comes out. This has the stub nib in it right now. And all these pens come with a converter. And the good news is you can use this converter with a Pilot vanishing point as well. And I think these are better than the ones that Pilot makes. But Moonman gives you this little bag of parts as well. And so these are your filling options. The parts bag comes with a little eyedropper if you need that for eyedroppering. It comes with a reusable plastic cartridge with the cartridge protector on it, so you can eyedropper and refill your cartridges. And if you refill a number of cartridges, you can use this little stopper. So fill your cartridge with ink and put the stopper in it. You can have one in the pen and one in your pocket for refills. And you can also use Pilot cartridges. And just to let you know that Pilot has come out with some of their Iroshizuku inks in cartridge form as well, so you don't have to use their same Pilot boring colors that you get in cartridges. So these aren't cheap, but this is where I get Konpeki in a cartridge. The one thing I'd like to note, however, is that whenever you use a Pilot cartridge that you're going to refill, say you use this one and you put it in the pen, when you put it in the pen, that little disc gets dislodged up inside so the ink can flow. And it usually sort of turns sideways once you pierced it. But if you're going to reuse the cartridge, get some long tweezers and pull that little disc out, because it just impedes ink flow. And I've had my Pilot E95S actually stop on me because that little disc has floated into a position where it stops the ink flow. So we're going to fill this pen here with Konpeki. There we go. It's pushed that little disc in and that ink should flow. Put it back in the pen. Another little trick I've done for the A1 is I put a silicone O-ring right there so that the pen doesn't unscrew. It makes it really nice and tight right there. It was a flaw I found with the A1. So I'm going to leave that face down in my pen tray. Well, actually, I forgot. I should be putting the sack protector on that cartridge. There we go. And what that does is it keeps the mechanism from wrecking the back of your cartridge. There. Now we'll leave that nib down. So I'm going to fill this cartridge here with some ink, and I'm going to syringe fill it. I'm going to use some Jack Frost here. I used it recently, and I really like the color. So I'm going to syringe up some ink. We're going to fill the cartridge to almost full. You don't want it all the way full, because as Archimedes said, "Eureka, I've got ink on my pants." You don't want to do that. So keeping it up, push that down, put the sack protector on, put the unit back in the pen, and screw it shut. There we go. And now we'll leave that face down until the ink runs through it, and then we'll do a writing sample. Okay, I think I have everything inked up properly. I have two A1s and an A3. The A3 has an Architect, Bobby Nib. The A1 that I'm going to give to James has the Bobby Stub nib, and the other A1 in this snakeskin, or fish scale, or whatever it was called, has my Pilot 18 karat gold stub nib. So we'll try the two Bobby nibs first. Let's try James's first. Here we go. This is the Majohn A1, and it has a Bobby, I'm going to call it very fine, stub nib. And the ink is Iroshizuku Konpeki. Let's check the wetness. It's not too bad for a fine nib, and it's the stub character we're looking for. So there's the horizontal lines, and there are the vertical lines. Not a lot of difference, but you do get some character out of it. I measured these lines and they go from 0.3 millimeters to 0.5 millimeters, which make it in Eastern nib sizes an extra fine to a fine. All I can say is it is much superior to the stock nib that came with the pen. In all the A1, A2, A3 pens that I've reviewed, I've never liked any of the Moonman fine or extra fine nibs that they came with. And this has a lot more character, so I think he's going to like that. I did use his nib widening tool to separate those tines a little bit to make it a little bit wetter, but I preferred using my spark plug gapping tool. It worked a little bit better. I used a 003 or a 0.06 millimeter gapping tool to spread those tines out to make it a little wetter. Let's try the one I'm keeping, the Architect, and this is a Majohn A3, and it has a Bobby, I'm going to call it an F Architect, and this one is very sharp. Well, Architects are sharp anyway, and it's thin in the vertical and thicker in the horizontal, but it's going to require some polishing, I think, because it's ripping up the page pretty nicely. But it does give you that Architect look to your lettering, which I do like. So I think I'm going to work on this nib. And it's also very dry, so I'm going to work on spreading those tines a little bit more with my spark plug gapping tool. Now, just for grinners, let's take a look at the Pilot. This is a Pilot stub nib that I purchased for this pen, actually. That's why I got it in black, but it's 18 karat gold. So this is a Majohn A1, and it has a Pilot 18 karat gold. I can't remember, but I think it was a 1.0 stub. And this has, I think this has Jack Frost in it. But this is a nice thin line and a nice thick line. That's like 0.9 millimeters right there, and that's about 0.2. So there's a huge range on this Pilot nib, and it's very smooth and actually has a lot of bounce to it, where the Chinese nibs were really stiff. And of course this costs what, 150 bucks or something like that, I can't remember, but it is a gold nib, and they are completely compatible with the A1, A2, and A3 series of Moonman pens, and I do like writing with this nib. So that's why this nib is not going out into the field of a film set, because that's a fairly delicate nib, and with the frequency with which James loses pens, I don't want that nib lost. He loses this pen, you're not out, what, more than 25 bucks or something like that, and the nib on that was 20 bucks, so you're not looking at the kind of money that's invested in this. So I hope my son will enjoy this pen in the wild, and he'll give me a report on how much he likes it. So thank you for watching this shorty, and that's all she wrote.
I made this.